Max Verstappen just turned Formula 1 against the FIA, and it's happening faster than anyone expected. 3 races. That's all it took. From the first warning in Australia, to a full driver revolt, to a 50G crash that proved everything they feared was real. Now the entire grid is speaking with one voice. Because cars are losing half their power, instantly, at over 300 kilometers per hour. Overtakes don't make sense. Drivers can't predict the car. And the system is starting to break the sport itself. This isn't just a bad regulation. This is a crisis. Even drivers who are winning are calling it out. Even teams benefiting are starting to worry. And for the first time in years, the FIA is losing control of the narrative. But here's the twist. The revolt isn't just about safety. It's about something much bigger. And what Verstappen is really fighting for could redefine what Formula 1 becomes next. Stay with me. At the beginning, it didn't look like a revolt. It looked like a joke. A simple comment, almost sarcastic. Max Verstappen compared Formula 1 to a video game. Not in a dramatic way. In a very calm, very precise way. He said overtakes felt artificial. Like one car suddenly had a boost, and the other didn't. Like something you would see in Mario Kart. People laughed. Clips went viral. It felt like just another moment. But it wasn't. Because that comment was the first signal. The first time someone at the very top of the sport said out loud what others were already feeling. Something isn't right. And within days, that feeling started to spread. Charles Leclerc said the same thing, in a different way. Sudden power. Sudden overtakes. No real control. Carlos Sainz took it further. He didn't talk about the show. He talked about danger. He said the speed differences were too big. That one car could suddenly slow down, while another was still accelerating. And then he said something that changed everything. It's only a matter of time. At that moment, it was still just a warning. But inside the paddock, people were already paying attention. Because when multiple drivers, from different teams, describe the same problem, that's not opinion. That's a pattern. And then, China happened. And the tone changed. Verstappen stopped joking. He stopped comparing. He started calling it what it was. A problem. A real one. He said he couldn't attack. Couldn't defend. Couldn't trust the car. Think about that. A driver known for absolute control, saying he doesn't trust what the car will do next. That's not frustration. That's loss of confidence. And when a driver loses confidence, everything slows down. But here's where it becomes something bigger. Because this wasn't just about Verstappen anymore. Other drivers started saying the same thing. Different words. Same message. The car behaves differently every lap. The system decides too much. The driver decides too little. And that's when the shift happens. Because Formula 1 has always been about the driver. The machine matters. The team matters. But the driver is the center. Now, that balance is changing. And drivers can feel it. They're no longer fully in control. They're reacting to a system. Managing it. Working around it. And that's not what they signed up for. But even then, it still wasn't a revolt. Not yet. Because Formula 1 doesn't explode instantly. It builds. Quietly. Until something breaks. And that moment was Suzuka. Because everything the drivers warned about finally happened. A sudden loss of speed. A massive closing gap. No time to react. And a crash that changed the conversation forever. Over 50G. At over 300 kilometers per hour. Exactly the scenario they described weeks before. That's when everything stops being theoretical. That's when nobody can ignore it anymore. Because now, it's not about opinions. It's about evidence. And from that moment, the revolt becomes real. Because drivers are no longer asking for changes. They're demanding them. And the louder they get, the harder it becomes for the FIA to hold its position. Because now, this isn't just one voice. It's the entire grid, starting to push back. And what they're about to do next is what truly turns this into a full-scale rebellion. And what they're about to do next is what truly turns this into a full-scale rebellion. Because this is the moment drivers stop adapting and start pushing back. Not individually. Together. Behind closed doors, conversations change. No more small complaints. No more isolated feedback. Now it's collective. Shared frustration. Shared concern. Shared pressure. And at the center of all of it is Max Verstappen. Not because he's the loudest, but because he's the most direct. He says what others are thinking, without filtering it. And that matters. Because when a driver like Verstappen speaks, people listen. Teams listen. Media listens. The FIA has to listen. And suddenly, his words are no longer just opinions. They become momentum. Because now, other drivers start backing him. Not publicly at first, but internally. Agreeing, supporting, adding their own experiences. Until it becomes undeniable. This is not one driver's frustration. This is the entire grid, dealing with the same problem. And that's when the balance of power starts to shift. Because Formula One has always been controlled from the top. Rules are created. Teams adapt. Drivers execute. That's how it works. But now, that structure is being challenged. Because the drivers are no longer just part of the system. They're questioning it. And once that happens, everything changes. Meetings become tense. Discussions become urgent. And the Drivers' Association steps in with something very specific. Demands. Not suggestions. Demands. Reduce the extreme power swings. Fix the unpredictable behavior. Address the safety risk. Immediately. Because waiting is no longer acceptable. Not after what happened. And this is where the FIA finds itself in a position it never wanted to be in. Reacting. Not leading. Trying to contain a situation instead of controlling it. Because every day without action, the pressure grows. More statements. More interviews. More public criticism. And now, it's not just about what happens on track. It's about perception. Because once fans start hearing the same message, from every driver, the narrative changes. This isn't a technical issue anymore. It's a crisis. And the FIA knows it. That's why the response starts accelerating. Emergency meetings scheduled. Technical groups analyzing data. Discussions with teams and with drivers. All happening faster than planned. Because they don't have time. But here's where things become even more complicated. Because while drivers are united, teams are not. Some want immediate change. Others don't. Because for some teams, this system is working. They've understood it, optimized it, built their advantage around it. So for them, change is a threat. And that creates conflict. Inside meetings. Inside negotiations. Inside every decision. Because now, fixing the problem means redistributing performance. And in Formula One, that's everything. That's championships. That's money. That's legacy. So while drivers push in one direction, teams pull in another. And right in the middle is the FIA, trying to balance both. Trying to fix the issue without breaking the competition. But here's the truth. That balance might not exist. Because the problem is too deep, too structural, too connected to the core of the regulations. And that's why every solution feels incomplete. Reduce electric power, you slow the cars. Increase recharge, you change the racing. Limit extremes, you reduce unpredictability, but also reduce intensity. There is no perfect answer. Only trade-offs. And that's what makes this moment so critical. Because whatever the FIA decides will shape everything that comes next. Not just this season. The entire era. And this is why the tension keeps building. Because time is running out. The next race is approaching. And everyone is waiting. Drivers, teams, fans, all looking for the same thing. A sign. That something has changed. That the sport is still under control. That this revolt actually meant something. Because if it didn't, if nothing really improves, then this doesn't stop here. It gets bigger, louder, more divided. Until the question is no longer about fixing the rules, but about whether this version of Formula One can survive at all. And that's the question nobody inside Formula One wants to answer. Can this version of the sport actually survive? Because at this point, it's no longer just about fixing the cars. It's about saving what Formula One is supposed to be. And this is where Verstappen's role becomes even bigger. Because he didn't just start the revolt. He gave it direction. He turned frustration into something structured. Something that can't be ignored. Because when he speaks now, it's not just emotion. It's clarity. He's not asking for small adjustments. He's questioning the foundation. Saying the problem isn't one setting, one parameter, one mistake. It's the system itself. And that's what makes this moment so dangerous for the FIA. Because fixing a detail is easy. Fixing a foundation is not. And everyone in the paddock knows it. That's why the language has changed. Not just from drivers. From engineers. From insiders. From people who usually stay quiet. Now they're all pointing to the same reality. This isn't behaving the way it should. And more importantly, it's not delivering what was promised. Because remember, this era was supposed to improve everything. Closer racing. More excitement. Better competition. Instead, we have something very different. Unpredictable power. Artificial overtakes. And a growing disconnect between driver and machine. And that disconnect is what drivers can't accept. Because once you take away control, you take away identity. And that's why this revolt feels different. It's not just about safety. It's not just about performance. It's about what Formula One represents. But here's where everything reaches its peak. Because now, the FIA has to respond. Not with words, with action. And that action is coming. Changes are being prepared. Parameters being adjusted. Limits being reconsidered. All aimed at one goal. Stabilize the system. Reduce the extremes. Bring back control. But here's the problem. They're working against time. Because every race without a solution makes the situation worse. More pressure. More criticism. More doubt. And doubt is the one thing this sport cannot afford. Because once doubt spreads, it reaches everyone. Fans, sponsors, manufacturers. And when that happens, the consequences go far beyond the track. That's why Miami becomes everything. Not just another race. Not just another weekend. A test. The first real answer to this entire situation. Because when those lights go out, everyone will be watching for the same thing. Not who wins. Not who loses. But how it looks. Do the cars behave differently? Do the drivers push again? Does it feel like racing? Or does it still feel controlled? And within a few laps, the answer will be clear. Because Formula One doesn't hide its problems. It exposes them. At full speed. In front of the world. And if Miami shows improvement, then maybe this revolt changes direction. Maybe it becomes a turning point. A moment where the sport corrected itself. But if it doesn't, if the same issues remain, if the same frustration comes back, then this doesn't stop. It grows. Stronger. Louder. More divided. Until the FIA is forced into something even bigger. A decision they never wanted to make. Because at that point, it's no longer about adjusting the rules. It's about rewriting them. And that would confirm everything the drivers are already starting to believe. That this wasn't just a difficult transition. It was a mistake. A major one. And the closer we get to that moment, the more one truth becomes impossible to ignore. This revolt is not the problem. It's the consequence of something much deeper. Something that started long before the first race, and that now, Formula One can no longer avoid.